Good morning and welcome on board. This is Raghda Musa, CEO and founder of HealNOSTiC, and I have here my colleague Suha Kamaluddin. She's the CCO and co-founder of HealNOSTiC. At the beginning, we would like to welcome you all on this event, ways of collaboration among stakeholders to achieve equality and digital inclusion. Within the framework of ITU UNESCO Digital Inclusion Week 2021, we would like to thank all our colleagues and friends from UNESCO and ITU for their support to achieve this big event. Starting the event, I would like to welcome Professor Ahmed Ghanem for the inauguration word. He's the director of MENA, the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization. Actually, he honored us to inaugurate this event today. Dr. Ahmed, welcome on board.
Thank you, Raghda, and good morning, everybody. I'll be very brief in welcoming you, and thanks for the invitation to let me take part in this important event. My talk will be divided into two parts. Number one is the issue of digital inclusion and how we perceive it in Egypt. Number two is how we apply this in the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, and specifically in NEMEC, which is the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization, which I have the honor to be its CEO at this stage. Now, number one, digital inclusion on the strategic level for Egypt is being a very important issue. It is being on the top of the agenda of the policymakers, and that's revealed highly in whatever it is related to let's say the cabinet by all its ministers in all the strategies and all the visions set for Egypt, following from the SDGs and definitely the Vision 2030 that Egypt is adopting. And this is translated into the strategy of the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology. And all the efforts and the gears are shifted towards achieving digital inclusion by all its means, whether we're talking in the financial aspect, and the fintech is a great success. So this is translated, as I said, in all the strategies of the government. And we have seen this in the financial sector as well as the educational sector on both the university and the school levels, and in different other aspects of the society, whether we're talking about the e-government or what have you, from all other aspects. Number two, on the international level, and as we see, been doing very well, and this is highly appreciated on the indices that are related to digital inclusion, whether it's the Berger Index or other indices. And Egypt has been among the top performers in the world, and maybe the third top world performer in this regard in digital inclusion. Now, definitely we have a lot of challenges in the case of Egypt due to the different kinds of societal backgrounds, due to the different aspects of financial abilities, but yet the government is working very hard on this aspect, whether on the, we're talking about the hardware of preparing the infrastructure needed for digital inclusion, or the software as well, by nudging the society towards adopting the different aspects of digital inclusion. Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, as well as the NEMEC here, we are trying to make this digital inclusion not only a motto or a slogan, but we're trying as much as possible to have it running and to have it being adopted in all the different aspects of the experience of visiting the different sites as well as the museum. So the idea is not just having an online ticketing, for example, or saying that we adopt technologies, but making it interactive, making the visitor enjoy and experience the different types of digital inclusion. We believe it is rather more of a language that it is spoken by different segments of society and different age groups, and hence we're trying as much as possible to make this available for them. So starting from online ticketing to evaluation, to websites, to social media, adding to that interactive screens, as well as screens that elaborate with different languages, as well as QR codes, So we're trying as much as we can to speak language that is spoken right now, to make them feel that the idea of digital inclusion is being adopted. And we adopt this for not only for showing that we have digitalized our museums or our systems, but rather that we're using it in the educational aspect, in the entertainment aspect, in how things can be used. So it's not a matter of you have to use technology, but it's a matter of enjoy using the technology that's being adopted in the museum. This is one element which is in the field of culture, in the field of antiquities, in the field of tourism, but it is being streamlined along the different projects of the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, as well as the different ministries and the other organizations in the Egyptian government. I hope I was brief, and I hope that you have a fruitful event today. And I thank you again on behalf of NEMIC, and thank you for this kind invitation that I inaugurate today, help in the inauguration today, your event. Thank you, and apologies if I was over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your session today. Actually, we have our great appreciation and thanks going to NEMIC, and special thanks to yourself and Mrs. Fayrouz for her support. Actually, we love to have the event in NEMIC this year, but due to technical issues, we wouldn't be able to make it. But hopefully, we will have a lot of collaboration soon with NEMIC in the very near future. Thanks for your time. And have a nice day. Thanks for the inauguration work. We really appreciate this amazing work and your efforts today. Thank you.
And I invite all of you to visit NEMIC soon. Take care.
Sure, we love to.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
We are going to start our first panel, welcoming our panelists today to ways of collaboration to achieve equality and digital inclusion among business and healthcare stakeholders. First, I would like to welcome my dear Professor Osama Bidari. Actually, he's our professor in Faculty of Pharmacy at Shams University. Professor Bidari now is the Vice Dean of Faculty of Pharmacy at BUE. Used to be the Chairman of NOTCARE and the Head of Clinical Pharmacy Department at Ain Shams University, Chairman of the Egyptian Clinical Pharmacy Fellowship Board, and he had more than 100 publications, original articles, and more than 100 master and PhD supervisions. He's the Vice President of the Arab Academy for Development and Pharmaceutical Skills. He was selected among the top 2% scientists among the on the world in the list published by Stanford University in 2021, and he won many international prizes. My dear professor, welcome on board. We are very happy to have you today. It has been a long time since we have met, I believe more than 10 years. But me and Soha are very, very happy to have you today on board with us. Please welcome Dr. Bidari. We also have...
Thank you very much.
Have Mr. Mohammed Hamza. He will be a panelist. He's a manager in Open Innovation Program at Bank Mosque. He's the ex-VP in ACV Lab. And actually, we have met Hamza earlier this year during our collaboration with AUCV Lab and the last cycle, Startup Launchpad Cycle 1. And he gave a lot of advices related to the business we are doing in HealNOSTiC. Hamza is the manager of the Master Open Innovation Program. He has 10 years of experience in innovation-led enterprise support, launch, and growth. He worked as an associate director for the American University in Cairo Accelerator ACV Lab. He co-founded the first fintech accelerator in Egypt, as well as ACV Angel Circle. He supported the launch, growth, and fundraising of more than 200 startups in multiple industries as fintech, commerce, health tech, and green tech. Welcome, Hamza. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much, Rada. Thank you. Pleasure being with you today.
And now we have our dear friend from UNESCO, Dr. Paul Hector. He's our friend, supported us all the time. This is our third year consecutively to have this event during the Digital Inclusion Week with UNESCO ITU. Dr. Paul Hector is the advisor for communication information in UNESCO. He has supported projects, initiatives, and policy actions in Africa, South America, Asia Pacific, and the Middle East. His work has addressed inequalities linked to genders of issues of gender, language literacy, island, rural living, and disability. He holds doctoral degrees in management science as well as in knowledge and innovation management. He has authored book chapters, conference, and journal papers, developed various courses and lectures and postgraduate business schools. Welcome, Dr. Paul, and good morning.
Thank you, Dr. Rada. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all today. Thank you.
So me and my colleague Suha will moderate this session. At the beginning, we have a number of questions, and let's start with Dr. Osama. Doctor, I would like to ask you about the very general question: how did COVID affect health in Egypt all over the world? As you know, rules began starting from the academic part. So we'd like to know your opinion and the effect of COVID-19 and health in Egypt.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this very important panel discussion. I think the COVID-19 has affected many aspects in the life in Egypt as well as in the whole world. Regarding the public health sector, it's very obvious that the government has reallocated many of the resources to satisfy the need for just protecting people, just putting some money for the hospital and for the prophylaxis and treatment protocol, and also at the personal level, the health of the people affected their incomes through just preventing them from going to the work and just limit their resources. They just cut many of their budget just to be able to protect themselves through the investigation, through the taking medication, the following all the protective measures. So the COVID-19 affected the public, the health sector at the governmental level and also at the personal level, and also it is economically very related to the health sector.
There is always a gap. After being graduated from the faculty of pharmacy, we have a very huge gap between what we have then studied in the university and the practical life, and then going to launching our business. So why there is always a gap, Doctor?
The problem is the gap is always present between the different parts, like at the university, at the level of the research and the market, and also at the education level and the market. For me, it seems that the gap is related to the need of the market. There is a very loss or lack of effective communication between the academic institutes and the market organization. They need to have more effective communication. So the universities or the academics know better what the need of the market regarding the skills of the graduates and the other requirements that the market needs. For example, if you have a pharmaceutical company, they need some graduate with special qualification. So through the communication with the academics, we can know what the requirements, and also there is the chance for the large number of the graduate students. They don't have enough time and enough facilities and access for the practice to be ready for the market. So they start the actual experience after graduation. And I always asking the people to have a plan before just going to the university. The university should, or the faculty should have a plan for their graduates, just to satisfy secure their work after graduation through communication with the different organization and make an agreement, memorial of understandings that we can be able to supply this organization with the needs for the markets.
So from this point, we would like to go to another point, asking Dr. Hector, what about digital equity? I mean, in the 21st century economy, broadband access and affordability is not a luxury. It's essential to everyday life. Are we far from it, Dr. Hector?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer because there are many nuances which this question raises. I think it was back in 2019, for the first time, we had more than 50% of the world connected to the internet. When we think about broadband, of course, we live in a day and an era where we're all value creation. The majority of value creation comes from innovation. It comes from creativity, and so having access to information, it's really, really critical. And of course, the broadband, the internet, etc. At its core, it's all about the delivery of content. But when we think about the sort of the larger picture, for example, if we think about the Sustainable Development Goals, which all nations have adopted, and which we talk about three specific areas: enhancing the social well-being of everyone, enhancing the economic well-being, and also the environmental well-being. We then look at content in another way. And so if we think about broadband, as I mentioned, we have just a little over 50% of the people on the world having access to the internet. And then if we think about the sort of information needs that people have in terms of being able to reach those sort of global aspirations of no one left behind, so social progress, economic progress, environmental progress, we see that there are many gaps. For example, if we think about the gender divide, there are many women. And of course, this varies from country to country. And even within countries, we see differences between those who are in the urban areas and those who are in the rural areas. Let's talk about another area. Very often, people lament the lack of content in languages such as Arabic. But we live in a world where we have something like 8,000 plus languages which have existed. Of those, we have something like 6,700 spoken languages today. And the vast majority of those languages are not supported by an information community and information content. So we find that many of those languages are endangered. And if we think about some of those persons using some of these lesser used languages, it means they have difficulty in terms of accessing, let's say, government services in a language which they understand. So equity has not been achieved for many persons. Next year, 2022 to 2032, the United Nations system has declared it the decade of indigenous languages, which is being led by UNESCO. So we're hoping that we can get more content available in more languages. And when we think about languages, we need to think about not only spoken languages, but also things like sign languages and braille languages and their digital equivalents, so that persons with disabilities can, of course, be incorporated. And of course, persons with disabilities, there's a lot of content online which has not been formatted properly so that people who face certain disadvantages can use it and make it useful. So in terms of equity, yes, there's a lot of progress that has been made. We see a lot of potential here in Egypt, for example. I know the government has supported programs supporting, for example, sign language being translated into spoken word and vice versa. There are many initiatives going on here. Use of artificial intelligence, so much things. So I think we need to be inspired. I think we need to adopt a sort of a glass half full attitude. And we say, well, we've been able to make substantive progress. Let us commit to moving forward and getting more persons on board. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
let's go to another question. And actually this question, how can digital inclusion enhance health and wellness among low income and geographically isolated people?
I think the problem that for the digital inclusion for the low income and people who are living in rural areas are very clear. They have they are deprived groups, so we should take account of the economic and financial circumstances that constrain their health choices, particularly understanding how this might constrain the access and interaction with the technology. So, for example, for low-income workers, it might be more likely to face strict rules or practical limitation on access technology at work or working shift pattern, making it more difficult to adopt a healthy pattern. Also, for people living at the rural areas, the people living in rural areas have lower level of access when using health technologies. One of the key risk mitigation strategies is therefore to address access barriers. Rural communities may particularly benefit from digital intervention, overcoming the challenges of distance.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Osama. Dr. Paul, do you have something to add for this question? How can digital inclusion health and wellness among low-income or geographically isolated people?
Yes. So very often we say knowledge is power, but I don't really believe that. Knowledge is actually the potential to take effective actions. So I think if we have the right content in the right language, like languages delivered at the right sort of level, a level which matches the level of understanding of the receivers, I think people can then have information on which they can take relevant actions to, for example, improve their health. So I think that's the first area. That's the first opportunity. And again, of course, if we think about things like access to telemedicine services, I mean, again, this becomes very, very important because now let's take my own example. I come from a country called St. Kitts and Nevis. It's a Caribbean country. We have a population of 50,000 people living on 2 islands. Okay, so what it means then is that certain types of medical interventions become, if you want to say, too expensive for the state. So imagine having like an MRI machine. Yes, it's very necessary for the health services, but then at the same time, the cost per person becomes too high. And then if you think about having spares and all of these types of things, very quickly for small islands, this becomes a challenge. So of course, with digital inclusion, now we have an opportunity where by sometimes using different types of sensors, we can, of course, carry out, have specialists in a remote place or in another place, of course, do their diagnostic work, etc., and of course impact the lives of persons. Another thing, I think it's also important not to think just only about digital technologies, but also aligned technologies. If we take, for example, the case of drones, we see that in some places, for example, in Rwanda, there have been a number of pilots programs where maybe the road traffic is very difficult, and so they use drones to transport, let's say, medication. There are also examples of this for example, in Denmark, off the islands off Denmark, islands off Scotland, where, for example, they use drones to send medication to persons. Sometimes the seas are just too rough for the boats to go, but using the drones, they're able to deliver it. So I think it's digital services, but then we also have to think about what are the other types of tools that we have available to us that can also help us in terms of delivering quality service to those who need it. Thank you very much.
And actually, this is a trend right now in Egypt, and Hamza could speak about this more since he helped a lot of fintech and health tech startups. would like to go right now with Hamza in a question that is not only directed to Hamza but also to Dr. Hector. But let's start with Hamza now. What are the barriers to digital inclusion, Hamza, among the fintech stakeholders? And please give us your opinion also about the health tech, since you have helped a lot of startups related to both fintech and health tech.
So, thank you, Dr. Rauda. So basically, let's start off by, when you're saying challenges, there will be a million challenges on a million dimensions, but we have to focus the dimension to be a little bit more focused. So basically, if we're speaking about the financial inclusion, in the beginning area, we need to focus on why are we doing financial inclusion. So most of the reasons why we're doing financial inclusion is to serve some it's a political direction. So it's a political direction that is based on economic overseeings and other multiple benefits that the country is going to get. However, to the end customer, to the end person who actually has the money, and I'm trying to transfer him from having physical money into having digital money, or from paying or conducting a transaction physically into conducting a transaction virtually, and to trust in it. For this to happen, there has to be some value. So in the beginning, we will always be talking about value. What value are we bringing to the non-inclusive sector? The non-inclusive sector has been non-included for a reason. They prefer to have their sense of security of where the money is and so on. And even if we look at, for example, other African countries who have the same market conditions, but have higher financial inclusion measures in the country, you would always see that these kind of countries, they do not have the kind of safety that we have in dealing with money. Yani, for example, if you walk the streets of some of those African countries with money in your pocket, the probability of you getting pickpocketed or even mugged in the street is pretty high. Here in Egypt, this is not very common. We see people who go and buy real estate with millions of pounds with cash. So basically, you go with a bag full of cash and you present it to someone. This is, of course, very unsafe for the market, very unhealthy for the market, and so on. But this is the first layer. What value are we bringing to the market, and how can we convince those people to convert into the digital currencies? This is the first layer. And this is the first layer for the end customer. So let's jump on another dimension to understand the depth of what's happening as well. The dimension from the governmental perspective is, in order to enable the startup community or the innovation community, the entrepreneurial community, to be able to digitize and present value for the customers, there needs to be a basic sort of infrastructural digital layer. And this is what we believe the regulatory authorities are building right now. So we're seeing a lot of laws and regulations coming up on instant payments. So what does instant payment do? Basically, it allows the transfer of money from accounts or wallets or you name it, from any bank to another bank instantly. So that means that if I'm working with one bank and you're working with another bank, previously in Egypt, if we wanted to do that kind of transfer, it would have taken 3 to 5 days. And in doing business, this is not usually optimal. So it presents quite a challenge. I want to pay you now, and I want you to open your account and see that money reflected in your account now. So this is what the government is working on. This is one of the new things. We've been also facing a bit of a problem where the government is trying to basically make everyone in the country being able to accept payment through cards, because from the other side, we are presenting other solutions based on cards, such as Visa, for example. That card is going to allow a lot of people to do it, allow a lot of people to pay by card and recharge the cards and pay everywhere. And from the other side, we have regulations coming up with soft point of sale. So basically, any merchant now, you don't have to do the initial investment of actually acquiring the point of sale or the credit card machines that we pay on. They can now accept payments through their mobile phone. So from your mobile phone, you can tap with your card on the phone and accept payment. So by that, we're creating the network that will be able to accept the digital digital payments and would allow for digital inclusion. And from the other side, from the end side, we have the digital literacy. And digital literacy is one major part when we're talking about financial inclusion using technology. So a lot of the people who are going to be included may not be able to deal with the mobile phone. So this is actually a two-sided responsibility. One side of that responsibility falls on the entrepreneurs, where they really have to master the experience of the payment. They really have to make it as seamless as possible. They have to make it as friendly as possible for the financially included segment, to the segment to be financially included. And from the other side, from the regulatory side, we need to have multiple awareness campaigns, and we're seeing this happen day after day with the awareness campaigns of do not get scammed, do not give your credit card information to anyone, basically allowing or shifting the governmental sector to only accept basically digital payments or card-led payments, no cash anymore in the government sector. And this is going to introduce people to how to actually proceed with that kind of payment. So when I'm forced to do it on some minor payments that I have to do yearly, and I will learn how to do it in those payments, but I will be able to scale them into other areas once things enhance a little bit more. So basically, this is how I see we can enhance the financial inclusion area. Rather than mentioning barriers, I think this is the road we're taking, and I think it's a pretty decent road. There will always be challenges. There will always be people who are not happy, basically. So startups are not happy. They want banks to be faster. Banks are not happy. They want startups to be bigger. But these are all like market dynamics that I believe in time will be obliterated. Thank you.
From this point, do you think Egypt is ready now for such a change from cash to using cards?
Definitely, I would say so. Egypt is in the process of being ready, and if you look at a comparison of the Egypt performance, the Egypt digital actual or the payment scheme of how payments operate in Egypt versus how they operate in the Middle East and North Africa, for example, or basically Middle East and Africa as a whole, then we're definitely competing on the top percentile. This is one of the things. If you look at some European cities specifically, some cities specifically have the culture of a cash-based payments, and while other cities have the culture of a completely cashless economy. So I think what we're trying to reach here is we're trying to reach the inflection point. So we are on the way. It is not that we're ready or not. We are already on the way. As we are on the way, we are fixing the problems that we see evolve to make us more ready and to make things happening a little bit more. If you look back 4 or 5 years ago, if you wanted to send someone who lives in a different governorate money, this would have been extremely difficult. You would have sent it through people who would take commissions and so on. But now everyone with his phone number, he can have a wallet and he can transfer money to another person anywhere, also using his phone number. And we have seen the adoption of this kind of internal remittance system. Year after year, the growth rates are amazing. You can check the data in TRA, but I think year after year we have 40% more volume of transactions happening on the mobile wallets. So I think we're definitely on the way, and we are fixing the problems as they emerge.
Okay. Okay. I guess I'll go ahead. Yes. So thank you, Hamza. I mean, you've really laid out, a lot of the key issues. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just sort of approach the issue of financial inclusion from the perspective of the Sustainable Development Goals, and I'll just highlight one or two things. So first of all, I think the shift towards financial services, financial inclusion, it's really important in terms of helping governments to be more effective and more efficient. So for example, in terms of the delivery of the government services. So as you know, for example, often the government provides welfare support in various forms, cash payments. So of course, this is a very efficient way of streamlining this. I'll just mention two particular cases where we see this happening. In Kenya, for example, you have a number of persons who are, let's say, involved in farming, and because of using these financial inclusion services, these farmers, they're able to do things like, for example, insuring their crops. And whenever something goes wrong with their crops, rather than doing one of these big, submissions, many documents, photographs, and waiting a long time to get paid, because of the financial inclusion systems, they're able to receive the funds faster. Also, because the receipt of these funds, this is also linked to, for example, access to credit. So the person who is selling them, let's say, seeds or other agricultural inputs, they are reassured by the fact that there's insurance. So they know that, their loans are safe. It means then low borrowing costs. And then, of course, it means then for the farmer, he's able to take a bit more risk, and by doing so, get bigger outcomes. And of course, this helps his family. So in terms of better outputs. We see also the use of blockchain systems being used by some UN organizations, for example, the World Food Program, whereby refugees, other migrants, internally displaced persons, they're able to access financial resources, and then of course direct this in ways which are best tailored to their individual circumstances. Very often we look at, for example, traditionally giving food. Sometimes the food, people don't have a proper place to store it. You have wastage, etc. And of course, just by having more say in terms of what do they do, the choices that they make, this of course empowers these persons and gives them a sense of well-being. Now, as we move towards these digital systems, as Hamza mentioned earlier, he alluded to the fact that you have security issues, safety issues. This also helps in terms of having a sort of a national infrastructure where people are registered. And of course, this then makes it easier for other types of government services to be rolled out. So if we think about, for example, the health systems, this financial inclusion systems can also help to pave the way for, let's say, national healthcare systems, national education systems, where everyone is sort of, registered, etc. So, and this of course strengthens this sort of social safety net, and it also helps us in terms of our transition towards a sort of a knowledge-based economy, knowledge economies and so on. And I'll just mention one last thing. Very often with many of the payment processes, they're very paper intensive. And so shifting to these digital inclusion, digital mediated financial systems, it reduces a lot of this impact. And so, of course, it helps us be a little greener. Of course, we must also acknowledge that about 2%, I think it is, of the global warming comes from computer servers, the processing, etc. So, but I think the savings in terms of paper certainly outweighs the cost in terms of the contribution made by servers to to global warming. And of course, it also opens up the way for us to better monitor the use of these servers, and then of course look at ways in which we can further reduce the environmental impact. So as I mentioned, so I talked about a number of socioeconomic and then also environmental aspects whereby financial inclusion helps individuals and also the society as a whole. Thank you.
For all panelists, what are the greatest challenges facing regulators and how might they respond? Dr. Osama?
For me, I think the stakeholders so public health, at least we can talk about we need to have a mission and vision and effective communication. I think lacking of the effective communication between the partners may be a problem to do the regulation. Also, we need to coordinate the activity across the the sectors of the government, the public health sectors, and the key stakeholders to be able to do it as more efficient. Also, we need to have, as regulators, we need to have effective information system, also effective surveillance system to enable timely detection of any impacts. Also to ensure the sufficient resources for the public health sector. Also sufficient stability just to be able to do the continuous improvement of the healthcare system. Okay, this is what I have. Thank you.
So also from my side, I think I'm just echoing what Dr. Osama has already said, but from for the financial regulators, I would say it's the very hard formula of balancing speed and security. So we want to go quickly, but at the same time, this is people's money. So we don't want people to have bad experiences that would make them shy away from it. This is the first thing. And from the other side, we don't want to have fraudulent companies who would take advantage of those kind of people. So and at the third part is, as Dr. Hector was mentioning a little bit ago, is fintech. When we say fintech, it's the infrastructure layer of financial technology. It's the main thing that is needed to give people more empowerment in terms of financial products. But everything, all companies have a fintech dimension or has a financial dimension. If you're giving loans, if you're giving insurance, if you're just receiving and giving payment and using a technological infrastructure, this is considered a financial technology solution. So basically, when we say banks and regulators, they're interested in making everything finance open and easy for everyone, however, in a secure manner and fast. So it's a very tough. I think this is the biggest challenge. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So I was just agreeing with my two panelists that we're asking policymakers to do something which is very difficult. In fact, we're almost asking them to become schizophrenic. And I explain. On one hand, we expect our policymakers to be wise, to ensure the stability of society, to ensure continuity. And at the same time, we live in this world where change is happening very rapidly. New technologies are coming out. Innovation is driving everything. We're thinking about not only about the competitiveness of our community, our country, but also our country. And we're looking at our neighbors, and we're saying we have to make sure that we're ahead of them. We need to be moving fast so that we can create the talent. We can also attract new talent and keep that talent here so that we can grow, because we're here in a battle, as it were, for brains. The best brains moving quickest, get the right ideas. And so we have the poor policymaker who's there, who wants to make things move forward, but at the same time, and unlike the entrepreneurs, as an entrepreneur, you go and you say, well, I had a startup, it didn't work, but I learned a lot from it. And, I had another one, it didn't work. And now, based on this experience, I now have this unicorn and it's doing very well. Policymakers don't have that luxury. We demand from our policymakers that they get it right every time from the first time. So, so they're a little cautious. So what can we do? In many countries, people are using what they call these regulatory sandboxes. So you say, well, for example, here we have a special area where certain companies, they can practice. It's almost like a living laboratory. They can, try out some of these new techniques with maybe in small areas, and we can look at this and we can see how we learn from it. Another thing which has been very helpful, of course, is many policymakers, they belong to, let's say, regional or international groups. So there are opportunities to sort of share best practices, share experiences. And I think this is very, very helpful in terms of seeing what can we learn from somewhere else. Because, there's a saying, nothing is new under the sun. So I think it's always good to, learn from others. And to quote, what's his name, Otto von Bismarck, You know, he says what fools learn from their own mistakes, but the wise learn from the mistakes of others. So I think today, you know, wise policymakers, they're trying, of course, to innovate, but also looking to see what are the best practices, what are the good practices that they can capture and adapt, you know, in their countries. So and of course, another thing which is very, very important, we need to keep the public informed. Many of the issues we're addressing, blockchain, even some people who are tech savvy, they have difficulties in understanding and grasping these issues. So it's even more important that we share and we discuss these issues with other persons, so that the public also recognizes the value that these things bring to them. And I think if we can create policy, we can create processes for shaping policy where we have those at the top also being able to engage those at the bottom in a public policy debate. I think we have we can identify problems earlier, we can respond to them quicker, and we can also come up with solutions. We talk a lot about the power of networks, the power of crowdsourcing ideas, etc. So AI and the technologies we're working with allow us to you know, benefit from these. So I stop here. Thank you very much.
For all the panelists, we only have less than 30 seconds for all the panelists if they would like to have a final comment for this panel, and 2 minutes for questions if anyone have a question.
For me, just I'd like to thank all of you for this opportunity. I really learned a lot from the panelists. Thank you for this time. Thank you.
Thank you, our dear Dr. Osama, and it was lovely to join us today. We actually have been honored to have you today, Dr. Osama. Dr. Paul, would you like to have a final comment on this?
Well, again, it's really a pleasure to be here. Dr. Rada, you know, over the past 3 years, we've been working together, and I look forward to more opportunities to continue this knowledge exchange with you and, you know, other actors in the innovation ecosystem. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Mr. Hamza, would you like to have a final comment on this?
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's been such a pleasure to join my fellow panelists and yourselves. Thank you, Dr. Rada. Thank you, Dr. Soha. And I just want to conclude by saying it's pretty much a journey. So it's not going to be changed in a day, but we are definitely going there, and we are definitely competing for the top percentile. So we're actually doing pretty good. And hopefully we're going to do better in the coming times. Sure.
Yeah.
For all the advice for us in developing HealNOSTiC, actually we are proud to know you earlier this year actually, and have a lot of discussions together, and thanks for all the advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
For the next panel, we have our dear Ms. Rhoda Al-Amir. She will be the moderator for the SDGs impact on startups business. And her guest will be Dr. Dina Talat from the National Institute of Governance and Sustainable Development. I will let the floor to my dear friend and colleague now, Ms. Rhoda. Ms. Rhoda, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Actually, let me start by welcoming my distinguished panelist, Dr. Dina Talat. Dr. Dina is currently a lecturer at MSA University and a consultant at the National Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development. She worked at the Ministry of International Cooperation. She holds 2 master's degrees from Cairo University and University and Duisburg, Essen. She has obtained her doctorate degree from the University of Duisburg, Essen, where her focus of study is comparative politics, corruption, and governance in the MENA region. Her first international book was published in 2020 with Macmillan on corruption in the MENA region. Welcome, Dr. Dina.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Actually, our session titled SDGs Impact on Startups Business. The SDGs really put a spotlight on some of the world's biggest issues and our ability to shape our impact on them, for good or bad. This represents a catalyst for innovation and new market opportunities for the entrepreneurs to embrace and drive growth. In that regard, I would like to start by asking you, Dr. Dina, how the SDGs has impacted the way we do business, specifically for startups. Why SDGs are important for startups, or in other way, how important is sustainability for startups?
Okay, so let me give a very brief overview on our institute, on the National Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development, and then I'll be jumping directly to your question. Is this okay?
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, so the institute is currently renovated. In 2020, there was this resolution from His Excellency the Prime Minister to have a new designation for the institute to become concerned with and perform with respect to sustainable development, competitiveness, and governance. And our mandate is aligned with the Constitution, the Corruption Strategy 2019-2022, the National Strategy for Empowering Women and Inclusion, Egypt's Disability Law, the Code of Ethics, which we have developed a few years ago, and the National Strategy for Human Rights. So basically, this is our mandate. Answering your questions, how far the SDGs are important for startups, I think I was thinking about this question, and around 6 goals came to my mind. So if we have the quality education, having quality education creates the caliber who are able and capable to become leaders, who are able to collaborate with others, who are able to conduct quality research, deliver data and studies. So quality education is key in this part. Another issue is gender equality. If we have gender equality, we're having a big part of the society included in the development and growth. So it indicates that women can take a lead, women who present the major example of success in many organizations, be it startups, be it international organizations, be it businesses. So we cannot ignore the idea of the importance of gender equality for this. Decent work and economic growth. Actually, startups enhance the employment, the diversity, they reduce unemployment, they increase competitiveness, they always come with new ideas and ventures, which makes the economy run faster and increases the competition in diverse ways. Adding to this, they enhance paying taxes, so this leads to economic growth. So the cycle is moving much more faster when we have well-established startups. Moreover, the innovation, the industry innovation and infrastructure, I will build on Dr. Hamza's words on the fintech and infrastructure that is key for a key layer for working in the economy. So innovation is key nowadays, new ways of education, work, payments, everything even got boosted with the COVID-19. So the financial inclusion as well, I don't want to repeat the words said by our panelists in this previous one. So more or less financial inclusion is also key in this industry innovation and infrastructure. Another part is related to responsible consumption and production. So ensuring the sustainable growth of a country by itself is led through the mindful consumption and production and paying attention to how are we using the resources mindfully. The last one that is very important and is also a key pillar is the goal 16, peace, security, and strong institutions. Strong institutions are actually key for investment, and no country will be capable to invest unless they have strong legal systems, strong regulations. Therefore, if we have a startups that in the survivor of those startups being it domestic or international or regional, it's key to have strong institutions that are able to support and assist these startups to move forward and to grow and to strive in a very competitive economy with even big tycoons. So I think this one is directly linked to the growth and the startups and all of this.
Thank you so much. Very insightful, Dr. Gina. And here I
Thank
would like
you.
to ask you about the role of the National Institute for Governance and Sustainable, and what are the actions taken by the Institute in emerging SDGs for startup business?
Okay, so I've been working for 3 years now in the Institute, and as you've introduced me, I'm wearing several hats. One of them is being a lecturer, the other is a consultant at the Institute, basically for governance. But recently I've been working so much on sustainable development. Dr. Raghda might be aware of this, because I was being the lead, taking the lead in becoming an ambassador initiative. The initiative was targeting educating and spreading awareness for 100 young men and women from the age of 18 to 35, with the aim of enabling them to become certified trainers to spread awareness about sustainable development regarding Egypt's Vision 2030, Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, and the Sustainable Development Goals, of course, for the UN. So it was a peer-to-peer model. It had a unified training manual, glossary to deliver some messages and some key definitions. The target groups were private, non-governmental, media sectors, students, graduates, postgraduates. One key player with us were startups, young people who are having their startups and who need our support and who need to get involved more in sustainable development awareness. Another one was young people who had some ideas and they want to take it forward. They want to take it a step forward. So actually, we help them with, in cooperation with the Sci Lab in the Faculty of Economics and Political Science. It's a venture lab where they had boot camps. We had trainings for around 30 of them with to grow with their ideas, to take it to another step, to get the seed funding for them. So this is one thing that we worked on, the Ambassadors Initiative, which was mainly targeting spreading awareness. This is one thing. Another thing is that we have a Stedama digital education platform. I've also taken part in this. It offers more than 50 programs in various fields related to governance and sustainable development. It is very user-friendly. It addresses many lectures of these address climate change, sustainable cities, all things that are related to the 17 goals in details, and these are very interactive ones. We also have the Atingi. It's also a digital education platform which is designed for African countries in cooperation with the GIZ, which is the German Agency for International Cooperation. The aim is improving the vocational training through e-learning. Actually, I've taken part in developing 3 courses in this one. The Code of Conduct and Ethics, we have it there on this platform. Innovation in Public Sector, Introduction to Governance and Sustainable Development, and Women and Development. So 2 of these courses are mainly addressing development, governance for sustainable development. So you're using government in order to ensure sustainable development. It has 2 very intensive and detailed programs, training programs to spread awareness on this. So these are some of the activities that we work on. Another one that is extremely interesting, I've only taken part in the consulting and assessment of it, is the online gamification training for SDGs. So we developed around 6 games. We are in the process of launching these very soon. These are a training method and a tool to promote sustainable learning through the COVID-19 era. We can use it for startups. We can use it for spreading awareness among civil servants, for training courses, for even students in schools or universities, in order to have a common ground for everyone, in order to be able to comprehend things the easiest way possible through these games. So it's interactive. It's a tool to minimize the fatigue and enhance the concentration of the learners, whoever they come from. So if they are students, if they are civil servants, if they are entrepreneurs, it's the very user-friendly way to deliver the message you want through the games. So we've been relying on diverse scenarios and learning processes in order to spread the awareness, not only spread the awareness, but also apply on the ground processes related to enhancing working through sustainable development goals.
Excellent. Thank you. It's really a very, very good approach. And I would like to congratulate the Institute for this approach, and by spreading the awareness among the societies, and building capacities and skills, and also to create such platforms that help the government in order to contribute to the achievement of the SDGs. Let me move to asking you, considering that. Yeah?
I just have a comment before going to the next question.
Yeah.
Please do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to express my pleasure to be part of the being an ambassador initiative by the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, actually, during this initiative. And it was an honor and pleasure to be to represent Egypt as one of the SDGs ambassador. Indeed, HealNOSTiC have been supported the SDGs since 2016. We are supporting SDGs 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, and 17. When I saw the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development having such an initiative, we selected for such an initiative because Dr. Dina knows well, they have been selected from 7,000 applicants.
Yes. Yes.
Only 1,000, right, Dr. Dina?
Yes.
Wow.
It was a harsh competition.
Yes, definitely. It was more than 1 year to have been selected, and going through the process, the 3 stages of the process, finalized by the TOT program. And actually, this is why we have today this webinar, all the panelists coming from different sectors and different industries. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your input.
Okay, thank you for your input, Raghda, and congratulations, actually. Let's move to another question. Actually, businesses need to rethink their strategies and change their behaviors to evidence their contribution and be seen to contribute positively to that government's goal. My question is why the SDGs matter to private sector, and how both startup, SMEs, and large company can get involved in the 2030 agenda.
Actually, I'll be reiterating on what the previous panel was talking about. I'm not just going to repeat the same things they have mentioned, which is of great input, but I'll just say that aligning everyone, aligning the private sector, the public sector, the startups, if we have the same ground to launch our work, to flourish, if we have the same ethics regarding work, paying attention to climate change, the carbon footprint, actually we'll be all rowing in the same direction. So in a nutshell, it's all about having one common vision and goal to work towards. So we need to align.
Yeah, very true. Thank you, Dr. Dina. And in order to deliver this impact assessment, how to make startups more sustainable using the SDGs by bearing in mind the social, economic, and environmental aspects?
Actually, I've been thinking about this the past few months, working on the Ambassador Initiative, because I was telling you this is the main initiative that I've been working on for a year now, and I've been so much involved in developing the manual, the glossary, and all of this, looking at all of the 17 goals, at the pillars of Egypt vision. I think cooperation and collaboration in, for example, ending poverty, the no poverty policy, the NGOs can collaborate with the startups, with the private sector and the public sector, but I'm always pro private sector and NGOs working together. The public sector has a lot on their plate, like Dr. Paul was mentioning, the idea of they have to be wise, they have to be cautious, so they are working on a very big level. So other levels can be managed through NGOs and private sector, including the startups, so they can collaborate on policies and programs to end poverty, to support the health sector in the health goal, to work on leveling up the calibers, the employees at their institutes, for example, having those employees better, giving them better training, better education opportunities. So spreading not only awareness, but actual actions on the ground to move forward toward achieving each of these goals. It's actually not very tough to work on if we have it like some of the KPIs in these businesses and the startups. Actually, it can move forward. For example, the equal payments related to gender, the adjustment of payments, moving to clear water, affordable energy. Industries need to consider working clean, need to move towards solar energy, need to move towards having better policies with regards to saving the environment. Related to life below water, climate change, life on land. They need to be responsible enough to lessen their impact, the negative impacts of their industries. They need to look at recycling, to pay attention to these three goals related to pollution, even hearing pollution, sight pollution, air pollution. So we need to be very mindful with these. We need to focus on R&D related to industry innovation, to modify structures for workers. We need to, when we look at the decent work goal, we need to have SOPs, standard operating procedures for our employees. We need to have a code of conduct. We need to have to secure a safe environment and well-governed environment for those. And I think this also serves the what Dr. Hamza was talking about related to inclusion and what's in it for them. If we look at our civil servants, our employees, our consumers, our customers as somebody we want to get the best out of them, we need to think about what's in it for them. So if we have the codes of conducts in place, SOPs in place, using clean energy, so everyone will be benefiting at the end. So I think collaboration in this will be beneficial for everyone.
Definitely, I cannot agree more with you. And even having this coordinated actions really required to achieve the SDGs.
Definitely.
Here, the government has a big role in terms of enabling the environment and putting
definitely
some legal and regulatory frameworks that push towards considering the SDGs and the industry to contribute positively to this achievement. Maybe my last question, we don't have much time, but yes, you have mentioned that just the equality, skills, and all these issues. My question is, why is digital inclusion important among stakeholders to contribute to the equality and inclusiveness for everyone?
I'll just answer this in two words because we're short in time.
Yeah, you have mentioned it actually.
It's all about the use of information and the access to information. So I need to have information and I need to have free access for this information, which is user-friendly, accessible for everyone. And Dr. Osama just mentioned it, actually effective information system and also surveillance. So we need to have these in order to be able to talk about digital inclusion.
Definitely, and even I believe that Egypt has a well-structured vision towards the digital transformation, in which we consider all aspects of ensuring access to everyone, everywhere, and to.
Yes, we're trying our best actually these days. We're having some policies and a clear process for this digital inclusion, but it's actually easier said than done. Takes a lot of time.
Definitely, and here the enhancing skills for the future work that will be one of the key issues to work on it. I don't. I want to stop here by asking you and try to check if we do have any questions from the audience. Ragda, could you please advise?
Actually, we don't have questions right now, but if someone would like to have a comment from the panelists or the audience on Zoom,
yes,
feel
please.
free to.
If you want to add anything before concluding this session.
No, Ruda, thank you so much. It was very happy to be among this panelist and in this event. Thank you, Dr. Roda, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. And actually, this is a very informative event for me. Thank you so much.
Dr. Dina.
It's totally fine. Thank you so much.
Insightful intervention, and I would like to thank the audience and to conclude this session and handing over to Ragda.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Roda. Thanks a lot, Dr. Dina. Ms. Roda is the program professor in the ITU Arab Regional Office. She has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering as well as an MBA. She's the focal point of digital infrastructure and digital inclusion program, including the empowerment ICTs for women empowerment, ITU child online protection and generation connect initiatives. She has over 20 years of experience in communication and information technology in the last 13 years, spent working on international organizations, mainly the United Nations. She's our dear friend from Syria. And welcome to the panel, and it was a pleasure. Today. Thanks for accepting.
Thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Dina, thanks a lot for accepting our invitation. Please, Dr.
Thanks
Dina,
to you.
wait for the another panel,
sure.
The women empowerment one. Next, we are going to the next panel. Panel will be role of business accelerators and incubators in ensuring equity and inclusivity. And in this panel, my dear friend, Dr. Paul Hector, will be the moderator, hosting Ms. Mariam Kamel, AUC Angels manager. Dr. Paul, the floor is yours right now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rada. As you've just heard, and as you see from the agenda, this session looks at the role of business accelerators and incubators in ensuring equity and inclusivity. And with me, maybe I'll just say a few words about accelerators and incubators. I think if we use an analogy from farming, we can see something very similar. Many farmers, they would have a sort of a nursery. So you've planted a seed, you have a young plant which is coming up, and you place it in this nursery where you can, give special attention to that plant. You can water it. You make sure that it's weeded, it's getting the nutrients that it needs, and you take it through that sort of stage in its life where it shows a lot of potential, but it's still very vulnerable. And then once you're able to get past that sort of critical phase, you're then able to take that plant and place it out into the field where it is much more robust, more able to compete against weeds, etc. And in my view, I see incubators, accelerators playing very important roles there, where, for example, we can bring founders who have already gone down that road to share experiences. We have universities who can, for example, bring new research which has come out and share this with young startups, so that maybe this can help them integrate new technologies, new ideas into their offering. We also have venture capitalists who can now come in, look at the sort of financial aspects of the business, tweaking the business models. Maybe they're meeting also with potential customers, getting that sort of feedback, which helps them to adjust their product, etc. And again, it's a very active, dynamic learning environment. And well, to share with us today, we're very pleased to have with us Miss Mariam Kamel. Mariam, she began her career in investment banking. She worked with a number of mid and large cap companies. She also co-founded and also managed a family wellness center. So she has hands-on practical experience of what it takes to, create a startup, work with it. And she also went on to look at the sort of academic dimensions of her work. She did a thesis which focused on social enterprises in Egypt. And at present, she manages AUC Angels, and it's the first university-based angel investor network in the MENA region. And so, Mariam, I'm very happy to welcome you to today's session.
Great to be with you, Paul. Thank you.
Awesome. Now, before we get into, the more technical aspects, I think it's always good for our audience for us to know a bit about you. I think it helps to, remove some of these barriers. Let's sort of connect with the things that got you interested in this field. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit about, what is it about innovation? What is it about startups that sort of got you interested? And how did, tell us just a little bit about your journey that, took that interest and moved it forward to your present role today, where you're managing this university angel investor hub.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. I think it's a really good idea to kind of ease our way into it. So, as you kind of were telling the audience, I began my career in investment banking. And usually when you do that, so you're on the sell side, it's, you act as an advisor. And of course, the primary goal is to, advise the companies in a way that creates value. Right. And, I was working in a time, I kind of entered at a time where there were really interesting, actually, economic reforms, around 2005, 2006, there was a change of cabinet. And I saw sort of firsthand the impact of public policy, not only in terms of attracting FDI, but in enabling, once again, mid to large cap companies really expand. And by expanding, obviously, they would, it would raise, that would have an impact on employment, et cetera. And so for me, I was always very wary. And of course, even though, it's obviously a very clear kind of capitalist role, but I was always kind of very clear in my mind, and especially right in emerging markets, there, you see the impact of that kind of on the economy. And depending, of course, on the macroeconomic situation, a potential trickle down, right? So that was sort of the beginning, and I think that kind of always stayed with me. I have to admit, I looped into this ecosystem almost coincidentally. I was personally advising, some friends and former colleagues on their startups. I began to do some angel investing and met, the team at AUC Venture Lab when I was working on my thesis on social enterprises. I actually did my master's in public policy and administration because there was a part of me that kind of really wanted to connect that investment professional with really understanding how public policy is formulated, implemented, administered, and how that can have an impact. Since joining the startup ecosystem, and many people from this space will tell you, once you're in, it's hard to get out. It's extremely dynamic, super fun, almost addictive. I've been angel investing myself and advising startups, and from there I have been managing AUC Angels. Just a bit about AUC Angels. So we, as you were saying, the first university-based angel investor network in the MENA region, but one of the newer angel investor networks in Egypt. Newer, but absolutely one of the more active ones. We've made a number of investment predominantly in the pre-seed, seed stage, and more recently pre-series A. Nomenclatures aside, for those who don't necessarily understand what seed, pre-series A, all these things mean, but the idea here is that we help early stage tech startups raise funding from angel investors. And for those that are new to the term angel investors, these are generally textbook definition is that they're high net worth individuals. Listen, in Egypt, not necessarily high net worth, but the idea is that these are individuals that are interested in investing their own capital in early stage tech startups. And I have to tell you something, it's really, the members of our network come in all different shapes, sizes, academic backgrounds, ages, for sure. But two things I would say are common amongst all our network members is one, they are driven by having a social impact, not just financial returns. Listen, it's a high risk, long-term and illiquid asset class to put your money in. You want something safer, go to the bank, buy real estate in Egypt. But listen, people that are doing this because they really want to help out founders of startups. And the second thing is they're very curious, right? Curious on what's coming next, right? How is the market going to be disrupted? What direction is the economy going to go in? What tech trends are there? So yeah.
All right. So I think this provides a very nice segue. So I heard you talked about your interest in public policy. You talked also about your background in investment banking and social entrepreneurship being a sort of a nice intersection point between those two. And very often when we hear about investment bankers, I think very often the stereotype is of a male. So especially as we're talking about this whole issue of ensuring equity, inclusivity, and of course within the context of social entrepreneurship. Maybe you can tell us about what have your experiences? I mean, what does the space look like in terms of let's say gender, diversity? What are your own experiences? What do you see you bringing as a woman to this as an added value or different point of perspective?
So I definitely think it's it's definitely an interesting point. I mean, I think we can also begin by saying sort of the idea of angel investing is in many ways kind of democratizing access to capital. Right. So, rewind 10, 20 years ago, if you wanted to start up a business, you had to have your own money, or you had to have access to money from, family and friends. You had to have access to wealth. Right. And so the idea here is that for those that do not necessarily have access to capital are able to do so, let's say through incubators, accelerators, and whatever. So by definition, the existence of incubators, accelerators, and angel networks provide people who were previously marginalized with access to, for sure, the capital, definitely the resources in terms of knowledge base. By the way, you didn't need to have graduated from, the Stanfords of the world to be able to have access to these resources and know-how. So also access to capital, resources, and then I would also say mentorship. So in general, there has been a lot more access and inclusion in that sense. Having said that, what we do find is not necessarily a bias, gender bias in terms of signing up to the program. So we are still seeing women joining these programs, but from an investment funding perspective, it is still quite low. The statistics that I last read, so of all the startups that raised funding in the past few years, only 2% were exclusively female founded, and 12% were a female to male mix. This is really interesting because there's a discrepancy between that and the performance of teams globally. These stats are now global in terms of their performance of teams that have a female and male mix. They tend to perform better overall, have more focus on profitability. So there's definitely, we're seeing that there, there is sort of like women aren't getting as much access to funding. I think that has kind of led to a lot of people looking to have angel networks and funds that have what is called the GLI, gender lens investing perspective. Of course, from a public policy perspective, there is a lot of kind of a focus on ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And most of the ESG, let's say, funding and money in Egypt and in the region in general is going towards increasing, the participation of females in the ecosystem. My personal experience is that I obviously work in a very male-dominated environment. I always have been from day one. And so, yes, it came with certain struggles, but I think kind of, once again, looping back and I'll tell you why, some of the people, why there are certain struggles. Apart from the fact that there are probably structural issues at play here. I mean, there's no question that women possess the talent and the capacity, but due to certain societal constraints and a sense of duty to the home, they can sometimes be held back. So that's a deep structural issue, I think, to be addressed over time. But I think kind of what is happening is, for example, there is a lot of deal making that happens in environments that maybe women aren't necessarily comfortable with. So, for example, after work, going out for some drinks, or discussing things over shisha late at night, or things like that, which a woman who finishes work probably wants to go back home, right, to her kids, etc. So what I want to say is there is a lot of work that happens outside of the office in environments where either women are not necessarily invited to, or even if invited, they don't necessarily want to go. So once again, certain societal things that, can we change? Can we not? I don't know. But definitely, if we can't change them and accept them as they are, I think that's fine. But workarounds are important.
I think you bring up some very important points there, and I was especially fascinated by that statistic that you mentioned about the performance of teams in which you have greater gender balance. And it's quite interesting when we look around at the global stage. When we look at countries led by women, there are various persons who have said that, well, countries seem to perform better under female leadership. So, hopefully, possibly over time, this is also something which will see more investors, more venture capitalists attracted to sponsoring, supporting teams which are female founded or with larger presence. Maybe one of the things I think which is very important in this sort of startup ecosystem, we're seeing that it's becoming very much globalized. And if we think about Egypt, for example, Egypt is almost sort of like, I think, the epicenter of startup activity across the Arab world. For example, we have Rise Up Summit, which attracts, again, startups from across the Arab region, but also founders, potential mentors, venture firms from Europe, from Asia, from North America, and even from Latin America. So, in your experience, I mean, how do you see, let's say, angel groups? I mean, how is this impacting, the work of angel investors, such as yourself? This sort of globalization, what does it mean for your activities?
Sure. I actually just, as you were saying that, I wanted to just I was looking a way to pull out some stats, by the way, on the performance of gender-based, because it's one thing to say it, but it's another thing to say the story in numbers. So if we can just go back to that.
Yes.
So here, gender balanced teams have a 20% higher net IRR than all male founding teams. Companies with female founders perform 63% better than their male counterparts. VC firms that increase the number of female partners by 10% increased, 1.5% increase in funds each year. The other one, by the way, 21% of all unicorns, which is basically startups that from like zero to over $1 billion, were led by women as of 2020. So yeah, I have so many more stats, but just wanted to kind of, back that up with some statistics there.
Before you go on, let me just interject a thought. My colleague Rhoda, who moderated the session before, she runs something called Girls in ICT Day, and I am certain that we will find a way to link with you afterwards. It's the 4th April. It's the 4th Thursday in April. So we will definitely be coming back. And I see Rhoda on the camera. She's nodding her head, actively. So we will definitely be coming back to you, on this. So thank you. Please continue.
We need to be part of this. We need to be part of this.
Definitely.
Yeah, inshallah, thank you. So looping back into, what you were talking about, if I can just kind of give an overview about the investment landscape in Egypt, because yes, we are attracting more attention, but previously we were pretty small. Till today, we're still small despite, the growth, but now, we're turning heads. So especially this year. I mean, we've obviously, had a very strong year. There's been a very strong year in terms of growth of investments in startups, particularly over the past 5 years. And just to give you a sense of the change, in 2017, the total funding size was nearly $22 million. And then by 2019, that was a little over 140 million US dollars. The following year, around 180. And then this last year, a little under $400 million. And that's a more than doubling. It's really massive. And it's had that ripple effect we were talking about. A lot of eyes are on Egypt. People are intrigued with what's happening, with the massive potential of the market and the supportive political environment, and of course a strong macroeconomic backdrop, which obviously have been validated by investors pouring in that funding. We currently rank second or third in terms of the largest funding in the MENA region. No, actually, we've surpassed Saudi Arabia this year, but in any case, we're quite close to where they are. We were close to them last year. And of course, it's unquestionable that Saudi Arabia is also a very interesting market witnessing, pivotal changes. With regards to Africa, we're the third largest in terms of total funding of startups as of 2021. Nigeria, has well more than double where we are. South Africa is also largest, but we now stand at number 3, slightly ahead of Kenya. But all of this, once again, is really another validation that more is yet to come for sure. So that's kind of in terms of, where we stand. But really, all of this is as a result, really is a function of our environment. Really, it's input, output. And Egypt as a whole, looked very different 10 years ago. So naturally, our ecosystem will feed off of the changes that happened. I mean, to begin with, of course, the strong economic recovery, not only post-lockdown, but we've had, in the past 10 years, really big economic shocks, right? Like the revolutions and the devaluation. And of course, some industries have been tremendously hurt, but, the solid resilience of the economy and the people is something that can't be underestimated here. Once again, I'll always talk about public policy as being very conducive. Of course, many areas of improvement, but all in all, policymakers recognizing how important this space is in leading innovation and potentially job creation. Another thing is excess liquidity. So whether regionally or locally a little bit, we don't have too much excess liquidity in Egypt, I have to say, but a lot of that is feeding this space. And where there's money, there's growth. Where there's growth, there's money. And so it's really right now a very interesting cyclical relationship that is happening, alhamdulillah. So yeah, so that's my view on a snapshot of what I see right now.
So, well, this is interesting. I mean, maybe this question is a bit sort of speculative, but one of the things I found quite interesting, you talked about that really huge growth during the last year. As you said, going from around 180 up to 400 million, and all of this within the context of COVID. So my question to you is, and you talked also about other strong economic signals. So is it a case of maybe startups being like the new thing and money chasing businesses, or, is this really pointing to stronger fundamentals? I mean, maybe you can talk about the sort of interaction between what's happening within the incubators, accelerators, and, the broader, and broader, economic environment.
Sure. So let me answer the question of, is it, the new thing, or are there fundamentals? I would definitely say a combination of both. I mean, I think there is, intrinsically strong fundamentals happening, but is there hype? I mean, who doesn't deep down think that's a part of it, right? And, you know, who knows, we'll be either, you know, time will prove us right or wrong. But, you know, a couple of comments. One, let me just comment on COVID, and two, let me say where the big increase happened, and then that can tell the story. So definitely, I think, you know, one of the silver linings of COVID for sure was the extent to which all of us got comfortable with, online panels, pitches, demo days, etc. And so when you did that, we personally found a surge in membership from the Egyptian diaspora, a lot more diaspora money coming in, a lot more. And it's not just about Egyptian diaspora, but also other nationalities that are in a way linked to Egypt, have studied there, lived there, etc., or people that are just kind of interested in the macroeconomic perspective. So the online component gave a lot of people access to what's happening. So everybody sort of knew what was going on with startups, but now they can see it from the comfort of their sofa in their PJs. It's fine. Right? So that was one thing that happened for sure. And so you got to really see and feel, and you got to see so many of them. So you started to feel like you understand more. And you got to realize I have the power to pick and choose which ones I'm going to invest in. So I think that's one thing. And then, of course, the other element is, you know, what everybody was talking about in terms of like the increased or the kind of acceleration in digitalization. In the same way that the Egyptian Revolution in 2011 brought a lot of people to social media that weren't there, and thereby leading to, you know, kind of an impact on internet penetration. But COVID really accelerated the extent to which you rely on technology for day-to-day chores, or your willingness to transact online. I'm sure many of the people present today were worried about, should I put my credit card details or not? Am I going to get hacked? All this stuff, but you did it. You know, now, right? So that was a tremendous hurdle before. And so a lot more people are transacting online, even people that for much of, you know, most part of their lives is still very manual in nature. You don't have to be a super techie to decide to transact online. So that's definitely one. So that's the impact of COVID for sure. But let's take a bit of a closer look on Egypt and where that big jump happened. Let me just say, you know, when you look at data, you always have to kind of dissect it. There were a few very big transactions that skewed those numbers. So if we were to normalize those numbers, you know, it might be a bit down, but the increase still would have been there. But if you look at what were the big winners, of course, not surprisingly, fintech, transport and logistics, which of course we all experience as an area where big disruption needs to happen. Also e-commerce, that wouldn't have been my bet, but it did constitute a full 20% of all the deals closed. And of course, you know, there were other startups popping up in all sectors. Healthcare, food and beverage were two other big ones. There were also a few dips in sectors like media, entertainment, advertising, marketing, etc. So, you know, they are also areas where, you know, fintech, where, you know, financial inclusion is very key. There are a lot of people with, you know, mobiles and a salary, but they can't access the banks, right? So naturally, this is going to be a big one. Transport and logistics, who hasn't suffered? You know, that's a pain point for everybody, not just for us, but also for businesses to take, you know, FMCGs, right? To like take a carton of whatever it is from the factory to the very kind of large supermarkets and the really small ones and the kiosks, you know, in the slums, etc. So e-commerce, once again, everybody's staying home and kind of wanting to buy things online. So once again, it really tells a story of how we're living.
Well, I'd like to jump in with another question, but I'm sort of I recognize that, you know, we're getting close to the time. So let me just ask if there are any in our audience, is there anyone who'd like to ask a question or make an intervention?
Yeah, I have a comment actually on Mariam's.
Thank you.
Mariam, thanks a lot for what you said. Actually, it was interesting and the info that I took from you. And actually, this is not the first time to meet you. We have been before during the UCV lab, the Startup Launchpad cycle. And it was a great session to learn from you, actually, from your great experience I agree with you that the FinTech is the biggest winner after COVID-19. And we were in Techni Summit last month, and someone told me, what are you working on? I said that we are a health tech startup, and they said, oh yeah, it's your opportunity right now to have it. So all the money is going to the health tech. And I said, yes, but actually, there is a bit different between health tech startups. There is the easiest way and there's the difficult way, and we are going to the difficult one, actually. We are not a health tech startup that's as a platform connecting someone with someone else. This is the easiest way. We are looking for academic information, knowledge, awareness, technology, and so on, gathering the all together. And I know that we have here my business coach, Dalia Rehab, and she told me before, Rauda, you are going to the difficult way, and you have to wait a lot in order to have an investor who's convinced with what you are doing and to give you that bunch of money in order to reach the market and be as a unicorn in a very fast time. Actually, this is difficult because our first incubating opportunity has been done earlier this year by ACV Lab, and then after that by Flat 6 Labs. After being struggling for, I don't know, maybe 2 years or more than 3 years. So yes, the opportunity came after COVID-19, but we're still struggling. Yes, there is a lot of gap between offering the money and knowing what are you doing on health tech. Everyone now is going to having or establishing a startup and saying that I'm a fintech or a health tech or whatever, in order to gain some money, grab some money, and a while after we don't see them in the market. And we have a lot of examples in this. So thanks a lot, Mariam, for what you said.
Thank you.
Dr. Paul, you are muted.
Apologies. I was saying, Ms. Mariam, would you like to maybe respond or share your thoughts on her reflections?
Yeah. One thing we always like to tell, let's say, our investors, not in the fine print, but in big, bold letters, is that because this space is high risk, generally the stats out of the World Bank and Kaufman Foundation are that of the startups you invest in, 70%, 67% will fail. 20 to 30% will break even, and 10% will be those home runs that could compensate for the rest. So the fact that many of these startups, you no longer hear about, it's the nature of the beast. That's one thing. The fact that maybe, I'm kind of, let's just put it in, kind of colloquial terms, some people are looking at this as a hustle and just trying to get some money, and you'll have that in every space, right? Capital will attract people that are trying to, let's say, maybe misrepresent and not do much with it. So obviously another thing, but I think really you have to kind of look at what you're doing in terms of, you have to believe in what you're doing. There can't be a misalignment between your value system and what you're doing. That will always show later on. So that's one thing. And I think, yes, it's difficult. There are harder ways, there are easier ways, but try and find a balance, right? I mean, don't always have to take the hard way, and definitely taking the easier way will be exposed over time. So yeah.
And just to close, what do you see as maybe some areas where more attention is needed? And what would you say to, let's say, youngsters who are considering a future in the social entrepreneurship space, especially women? So areas to be tapped, and what words of advice, encouragement would you give to the next round of potential young leaders, especially women, looking to enter this space?
So once again, I'll go back to values, right? Everybody will give you the advice of follow your passion. I'm not one of those at all that will say that at all. I will just always say, follow your value system, right? Determine what that is, and make sure that you kind of keep that in mind along the way. And I think from that, that I think for me is kind of the primary driver. And I think where You see some of the stronger founders. You won't necessarily always have the best idea initially. Many of them pivot many times, but to them, kind of what matters to them is very clear, and no matter what, they go for it. As for women, I think acknowledging the fact that it is an uphill battle, it will be harder for you, deal with it. You won't get the same opportunity, know that, and deal with it, right? Nobody said it was going to be easy. You have been given a seat on the table. You just have to find your way to it.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and let me ask everyone to join with me in thanking Ms. Mariam for those insights. I mean, this has been a really wonderful conversation that we've had here. And I really look forward, as I said, to having future conversations also with my colleagues and and all the interested parties. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a question, Dr. Paul.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can see someone raising their hand.
Okay.
A question. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Ms. Mariam. That was an interesting talk. I have just one simple question here to add. How being socially responsible give a startup some kind of leg up?
I think, it will really depend. I have to say, it depends who you're addressing, right? In terms, from a regulatory perspective, in terms of, policymakers, etc. Obviously they will look at that favorably. Investors, some look at that favorably, some it doesn't really figure for them, I have to say. Once again, there is the ESG component, which is that investors are doing this either on their own or are forced to start looking at environmental, social, and governance elements within how they run their businesses. So right now it's preference. Soon, maybe everybody will have to consider that element.
Thank you so much. To be prioritized over profit?
So once again, it really depends. I mean, by the way, that was kind of the crux of my thesis, is that when in conflict, which one will supersede the social mission or the profit, right? The profit angle. And it's kind of that the perennial issue for any social enterprise. Once again, at this point, you have to honor your value system, but make sure you can survive.
Thank you so much. We'd love to read your thesis, though.
Well, thank you very much. I love that. Follow your values. I think that's really, really very sound advice. And I think I guess that's pretty much like what Simon Sinek says about knowing, connecting with your why and following your why. Yeah, that value system. Yeah. So yes. Well, if there are no more questions, are there any more questions? Otherwise, I will hand back over to Dr. Rada and bring this segment of our session to a close.
Thank you, Paul. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much.
Did I? All right. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Me too. I really enjoyed the conversation between Ms. Mary and Dr. Paul, our dear friend. The next session will be moderated by Ms. Noura Rafaf, our dear friend from UN Women. We are going to have a panel on female leaders, empowerment, challenges, and obstacles faced by women in business. Okay, for this panel, we have Ms. Noura Rafaf from the UN Women. She's a program specialist in Women Economic Empowerment Unit. And I would like to thank Dr. Paul Hector, who introduced me to Ms. Noura Rafaf and Ms. Maha Ratib from UN Women. And we are very glad and pleasured to have cooperation with the UN Women. Also, I would like to welcome Ms. Nathalie from Haran. Hi, Ms. Nathalie. We haven't know each other before, but I've heard from you, from my colleague, Ms. Dr. Soha, about you. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, Dr. How are you? It's been a great talk, and I'm really happy to be joining in. Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
I would also like to say that all of the points that were raised were just perfect. I am the head of ESG at HealNOSTiC. I'm going to have just a small comment. So as Mariam was saying, as lots of people were saying, yes, ESG is becoming something that is very looked upon. something that also is needed for the correct sustainability and development. SDGs is a great catalyst that is pushing for change as development. And really to see an event that surrounds this topic is just wonderful.
Natalie, are you here?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know what you heard, but I was saying as head of ESG at HealN, MNT actually, which is MNT is a mother company that has several brands such as Tasahil, which is a microfinance, Mashru'i consumer finance. We have Rasidi, which is an open loop wallet. And we have HealN, which most of everyone usually knows. And this is the perfect point to say that, yes, ESG, as Mariam was saying, is something that is really being looked forward to, and people are really targeting it and focusing on it. And as everyone was saying, SDG is becoming the perfect catalyst to encouraging development and change within startups, within companies, and within international exchanges. So I'm really looking forward to this coming talk regarding female leaders, and it's really wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Natalie, for being here with us today. Noura, the floor is yours, but allow me to welcome Ms. Brigitte. She's my dear colleague from YC Startup Schools. We have been knew each other, I believe, a couple of years now. Ms. Brigitte is an ex or a former UN employee for several years. I will let the floor to Ms. Noura right now to introduce all the panelists. Noura, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Raghda, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be moderating the session today. I think we will be, or I'll try to make it a very brief session so no one gets bored and we try to get the most out of it. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Noura Rafa, and I'm currently managing a Women Economic Empowerment Program at UN Women Egypt Country Office that works on supporting women entrepreneurs and women job seekers in collaboration with multiple stakeholders, including the National Council for Women, the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Ms. MEDA, and other players. For today, we will be focusing on female leadership in businesses, or I would like to frame it more on how women try to get their sense of agency and develop further in the ladder and the challenges that they face, whether they are the self-employed or employed in the private sector or any organization. For today, we will be having Ms. Brigitte Hire-Mountain, CEO and founder at Gig3. I hope that I pronounced it right. And Dr. Dina Talad, consultant at the Egyptian National Institute of Governance and Sustainable Development. We'll also be having Dr. Rasha Radi, the COO and co-founder at Shafaa, and Ms. Sabrine Morsi, CEO and founder at Farines Marketing. I'll start by Ms. Brigitte, and I'll be asking her from her experience as the CEO and founder at Gig3. What are the specific challenges that you faced in your job being a female through your entire journey?
Yeah, hi, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Raghda Musa, for inviting me and for including me in this important conversation. I have very much enjoyed the previous sessions, and especially the last one by Mariam, which I thought was very well encompassing to the challenges we face as women entrepreneurs, not only in the region of the Arab world and the Middle East, but also globally. So when you ask me what are the challenges, I mean, there are a number of layers to challenges. The first thing I have faced throughout my career as a woman, even from my first job with when I just graduated and I started in the NGO sector with Save the Children and others, and then joining the UN. So there is the qualitative challenge, which means just by virtue of being a woman, I've learned a lot of tricks on how to avoid these challenges, and I'll talk about that. But I think the first challenge is just because you are perceived as like the one that doesn't in a meeting or in a peer group, even in the UN, as all other heads of offices, or as a fresh grad with other fresh grads, you are the one who has to listen, to be mansplained to, and also that your opinion doesn't have the same weight as other people's opinion. So there's that challenge that you face, and it trickles even to many layers of the professional world. And at the same time, now as an entrepreneur, you face the same thing. And I'll also tell you what other people are doing to face that challenge. But one thing that we're always faced with are all male panels, which I'm happy this is not one of them. So not only all male panels, but also mansplaining to you the idea and the original thought that you had being repeated to you as somebody else's idea, and being, we're all familiar with mansplaining, which deters you from actually voicing your idea, because it is like a demoralizing way to deal with women. The third thing, and I am a mother of 3 daughters, so I try very hard to instill in them the spirit of your opinion matters much more than any other opinion, because it is yours and you own your opinion. And one thing that I have learned in the UN, and I would like, I mean, people listening to us to know, is that when you are a woman and going into a board meeting or into a high-level meeting, do not take a notepad and a pen with you. Because when I was head of office in the UN, when we go to a meeting, even with other heads of offices who are males, they look at me automatically and asking me to take notes for the meeting. So they demote you into a secretarial post. So I never take a note or a pen with me. So I expect them to take notes. This is one thing that you can do to actually overcome that challenge. The other thing that when I first started with my co-founder, who is an amazing lady called Hanadi El Sayed, we started this, our startup of gig work, and especially concentrating on women who are professionals, who are at home, who can work remotely, and who can do gig work as professionals from the comfort of their home, not only during COVID, but only afterwards, so that they can give quality time to the families. One of the things that we faced is that everybody told us that as women founders, we're not going to have the same access to capital and to VC capital and seed capital as male founded companies. One thing during our research that we found out, and I don't know whether you heard of it, there's a company called Witchsea in the US, and this is an e-commerce company. It was founded by 2 women, and those 2 women were facing so many challenges of VCs and seed investors and angel investors, even suppliers, because it's an art e-commerce, responding to them. So they created an email by the name of Keith Mann, M-A-N-N, who didn't exist. But it was a fictional man that they added as a co-founder, and he started writing under his name to VCs and to investors. And lo and behold, he was getting the answers the same day. He was invited to meetings. There's always a problem with his camera, so he could never be in those meetings. So he worked mostly on email, and we can see that there is a gender bias with women founders, because once you invent that you have a male founder with you, they will get a different response. So how do you overcome that challenge? Of course, not every women-founded company is going to invent a Keith Mann. What we think is, and I have listened very intently to what Mariam was saying from AUC Angels, is that yes, the solution is having women investors, women seed investors, women angel investors, and women VCs. Because women invest in women 3 times as much as males invest in women. And this is due to something called homophily. Homophily, which means that you identify with the same gender, you you identify, and not only that, you trust that gender. We can see that 2.3% of global funding goes to women as opposed to men. Although the performance, as Mariam said, that the gender lens investing shows that companies that have at least one woman founder outperform others, and they go into the exit stage much quicker and making more money for the VCs. We see that there is very little investment, although in the Middle East, it's not as bad as the US. In the US, it's 2.3. In the Middle East, it's above 3%, but still 3% is a far number away from 50%, which we aim to have. So what we see is that women who invest in other women will be helping those women by widening the top of the funnel, so that more women will get seed. They will get the friends and family, even the pre-seed, investing in them to get their idea to market. And this is where all the difference is made, in my opinion, and according to my experience. Thank you. You're muted, Nora.
Thank you, sorry. I'm saying thank you very much for your intervention, and you're speaking about a very important topic that we are actually promoting right now at UN Women, which is gender lens investing, and I'm glad this came up in your intervention, as it is really pivotal in promoting women entrepreneurs and giving them more access to capital and markets. And moving from this point, I'd like to introduce Dr. Dina Talat and ask her a question, given her background in work in inclusivity and governance, on how can the entrepreneurship ecosystem become more inclusive to women's entrepreneurship and to women's leadership. Please go ahead, Dr. Dina.
Hi, Nora. Thank you for the question. Actually, I'll be talking from my point of view and our mandate at the Institute. So we've been working very much and very hard towards women empowerment. So we have several programs among this. Let me again refer to the Become an Ambassador initiative. It's not because I'm the one taking the lead in implementing this initiative, but because it was mainly run through women. So we were very cautious with the gender issue. So we have more women in this initiative, around 400 women, and the number was less for males. So we were very attentive to have more women included. We also have different initiatives in the Institute that are trying to enable women in different ways. So I can mention some of these. It will give some insight regarding entrepreneurship, regarding women in leadership positions, no matter where they are. So we have one program that is related to women mentorship program. It's done with in cooperation with the USAID. It supports women in building their capacity, those who are candidates to hold senior level positions within the government organizations. So this one is mainly targeting enhancing succession planning and promoting more inclusive workspaces. Another one, which was actually a surprise for me, that we have a huge gender digital divide in Egypt. So one of the initiatives we're working on now is She for a Digital Future. It's done in collaboration with the UN and Cisco. It tries to complement the Digital Egypt strategy through delivering courses in general and advanced computer skills, training courses in gender parity, financial inclusion, and sustainable development, which also feed in this goal. It's a blended program aiming to train around 2,000 women from many walks in life, actually. And by 2022, by the end of next year, we're targeting 8,000 women to be trained within this program. We also have another initiative that's actually leaving a very good impact, because it's targeting the 12 Egyptian governorates and aiming to cover all the governorates by the end of next year. And we have trained around 3,800 women This is targeting, improving, and empowering the promising leaders, refining their experiencing in dealing with contemporary challenges at work, improving the performance, the institutional performance, and and supporting.
I'm sorry for the.
I just thought you're having a question.
Yes, I want to take it a bit further from your experience in the work on those several initiatives and engagement with different stakeholders. How do you see, if you are to provide one recommendation to a policymaker on supporting women entrepreneurs, what would that be?
Actually, this is a tough question, but I would say that one advice would be if you ignore women as part of the society, then you're ignoring more than half of the society. So you're depriving everyone from growth, from flourishing overall. So this is actually it.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dina. We'll come back to you with other questions. I'll go next to Miss Rasha Rodi from Shafaa, who have a very interesting experience. I heard about it even like long time ago. Rasha, you can tell us more about your journey in establishing your businesses and the challenges you faced as female founders.
Well, hello, good afternoon. First, I would like to introduce myself briefly. I'm Dr. Rasha Rodi, the co-founder and CEO of Shafaa. So basically, my background is an academic background. Before founding Shafaa, I was a lecturer of pediatrics at Cairo University. So entrepreneurial world is completely new to me. It's totally out of comfort zone. My co-founder and I were friends, and we decided to build Shafaa back in 2017. It's not I'm not gonna say it was not an easy journey. It's still not an easy journey. The fact that the founding team is 100% females, something that I realized to be difficult throughout the way. I never thought it would be that difficult. Basically because my father, we are three sisters, and my father taught me and raised me that I can do anything. So I'm a doctor. I'm well respected in the society. My sisters are doctors. We didn't face before the entrepreneurial journey any problems with society. We're always perceived as respectful doctors in the society. But getting out of my comfort zone, starting Shafaa, that was completely different. It was like learning to speak German. It's a completely new language for me. At first, I did not realize that the difficulty that we were facing was because we're females. The first we thought maybe because I'm out of my comfort zone, I'm still learning this, maybe that is normal. And that was really clear during our first fundraising, because we took more than 14 months to raise our seed round. And honestly, I thought the reason why took us that long is that because we were at the very early stage, we are learning how to make business, only to realize that's not the truth. Because apparently, in the first meeting with an investor, if the questions that are asked by the investor to a female founder is completely different from the questions asked by the investor to a male founder. The questions asked by the investor to a male founder would easily lead to a second meeting, which naturally helps and give the founders time to prepare and have a better result. But to a female founder, it's as if they're trying to make it harder so that there won't be a second meeting. And that's something that I grew to realize after almost 7 months when I knew of the questions that were asked to other male founders. So it's not easy having a business 100% female founder. And I know what the joke was. when we reach out to programs that help female founders like WOMENA, like grants, funds, and the joke wasn't, they would really laugh and say, huh, so they're getting the money because they are women. Well, yeah, duh. I mean, they are helping women because they need help. So, and I coach from male founders, I won't say who was, okay, then this is easy. I can go get a female founder and join these programs just to get this money. So they still can't see the point that why these programs were built. These programs were built because there is a gap that female founders need help on the funding level, on the educational level, the knowledge, on the mentoring level. And this is why these programs were built. We only show that these programs were exclusive to women because they are women. So I can have a founder who is a woman, and voila, I can have access to this money too. This is how they perceived these opportunities. So it was really, I mean, I was really amazed. This is how you see it. So I have to admit that there were some few examples of male entrepreneurs who were really understanding, and we can see right through hard work, and this is worthy of funding, worthy of a good product. But for the first 14 months of fundraising, the fundraising process was extremely difficult. And I remember it was an international investor who actually bluntly asked, why haven't you raised a fund so now? Is it because you're a woman in Middle East? So I was, I had to be silent because I really felt ashamed that I can say yes. But so I did not answer this question. I tried to be evasive. And then I learned from international investors the type of question that I should expect from a mature investor. And this is how the conversation went completely different with investors, because I can now, based on the questions I receive from the investor, can categorize if this is an investor who is mature enough, know about my sector, and that I can have a conversation with. So yes, it was difficult in the beginning, but also, to be fair, starting the year 2020, even before the COVID, most of the conversations that we started to have with investors, the quality of the conversation started to be different. It somehow improved. I don't know if that means that the VCs, the investors, are getting mature. And when I say mature here, I mean they're realizing that the importance of inclusion, of gender inclusion, that the female founders do have something to give out there. The type of questions were completely different. Questions that actually are asked to assess the quality of the product, the quality of the business, the experience of the founders. And then starting the early 2020 up till now, we are hearing a different type of questions that really means that even the investor landscape is changing. They are learning the importance of diversity. They are, or at least let's say that they are learning to know how to listen, assess properly, and not putting the gender point as a deal breaker. So this is something good. I have to believe this is something good. Maybe it's because the investors in our region are now mingling in different occasions and events and conferences with international investors. So they themselves are learning the same way that we are learning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rasha, very much. This is very interesting. And again, it touched upon the idea of the importance of having or sensitizing the investors about gender issues. And it goes into the same line that Ms. Bridget raised in the beginning as well. And you are reaffirming the message once again. The challenge.
this, please.
So,
yeah, I have an addition. I need to have a comment on what Rasha said. Thanks, Rasha, for being here today. It's a pleasure. I haven't met before, but I actually saw you at Techni Summit. So yes, I agree with Rasha. Although we are in different stages in the startups. However, I remember my business coach, Dalia, told us before, we were very proud to be as a female founders for HealNOSTiC, and we are looking to hiring more females, and Sabrine will add for this in her talk, actually, more females for our startup. But and we were always telling our investors who are we are looking for investors, actually, that we are female leaders, we are female co-founders, and they said, oh yes, that's wonderful, and it stopped here, actually, nothing else. We don't have any investment. It stopped on it's wonderful to be female founders and to hiring more females, but it stopped here. I remember that Dalia told me that, or rather I forgot to tell you that most of the female founders actually have struggles in having investment rather than male founders. And this is a study by Harvard University. So
Asfa, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but continue the flow of the then yes. We can have time for discussions and questions and answers. And we are on to our last speaker, Ms. Sabrine Morsi. Please go ahead, Sabrine, and introduce yourself. And please tell us more about also your challenges as a woman entrepreneur, whether through in the early stage or now while you are in the business.
Thank you, Noura, for your invitation. Thank you, Raghda. It's my pleasure to be part of this discussion. Really, I got a very interesting ideas, and I feel that I'm not alone in these challenges. And many of women have the same challenges, and more and more. I would like to give you a brief about Farines Marketing Services. We established Farines 2016. We are focusing on B2B business, especially in the industry and the manufacturing. So this is a hard part of marketing, to focus on engineering part, because I'm engineering. I have more than 20 years experience in marketing and in IT and different industry. So I select the hard part, the harsh part of manufacturing and the industry. Most of the CEOs of the manufacturing and the industry are men. So they are always dealing with men related to the management sectors, related to the sales team. And when you about marketing activities and how we could support this manufacturing to go outside and to sell their products either inside or in Africa. Because Farines went 3 times, 2019, 2020, 2021, as one of the entrepreneurs in Egypt over the Africa. Recently, Farines is the only company that owned by female and has a great position in the North Africa related to women in Africa. So we have a great support from Africa, and we would like to support manufacturing and industry to export and import from Africa to have a mutual business between different countries in Africa. But we face a lot of challenges when we are talking with CEOs, men CEOs in manufacturing. I'm a female and I am a woman, and they doubt if we could do that for them. They doubt if we have the experience to help them for that. And they would like to be on the safe part, which is dealing with men, especially in sales team. So to overcome one of these challenges, I asked one of my colleagues over 40 to come with me as a managerial part and to talk with the CEO or the director about our service. Once I have my colleague with me, everything will be easy, because it's easy to talk with him. It's easy to related to the marketing although we are doing this business for them. This is a great challenge because they don't expect a woman to talk with them in manufacturing, in engineering. They just talk with a woman when we are talking about marketing, to talk about videos, to talk about social media, not to talk about helping the industry. Second point, I am a widow and I have 2 small kids. So it's very difficult to have a balanced life between the challenges that I face as an entrepreneur and the challenges that I face as a single mother. I have 2 full-time jobs, full-time related to my business and full-time related to my family. They are small, they need to grow up, they need to have talks, challenges related to them. So as I hear the statement today, I don't have time to go to the club or the cafe and discuss a business with anyone at any time and it have a plenty of time. No, it is very difficult to have this plenty of time. So sometimes I ask my clients or leads to stop calling me after 6 p.m. Why? Why we stop calling you after 6 p.m.? We have an issue. Yes, because I have another duty in my life. It's difficult, yes, I know. Third challenge that we have. Today, I have listened a lot of courses, initiatives. That's great for startups on the stage. Here in my growth stage, yes, I learn every day. I read every day. I take online courses every day. But I need to have a mentorship from different stages, mentorship to my different challenges. I think one of the mentorship, how to balance my life, my goals. And another mentorship, it is related to how to go my business, strategic point of view, planning, and maybe another mentorship for how to hire a qualified people. It's a different challenge. So I don't need just an online course, or I need a depth relationship with a mentorship.
Thank you very much, Sabrine, for laying out different challenges that you face as a woman wearing different hats in a male-dominated field. And you have mentioned also, I'm trying to like tell the story from the different speakers. You have also mentioned a very important part related to the time or the space for networking for your business outside of the usual working hours. That is important for the growth stage. And you have also mentioned something very important that relates to the challenges that women face beyond when it comes to early stage women entrepreneurship. There is a lot of support, but when women are in the growth stage, it becomes sort of a bit more lonely, I would say, but there are support definitely in the ecosystem that just needs more highlighting, perhaps. I would say we can take now like another 5 minutes for discussions or questions and answers. So if anyone from the attendees or the participants have questions to the panelists, please raise your hand and we will give you the floor to do so. Okay. Nariman, Kamaluddin, Fanchut.
Thank you so much for this chance. I have one question with regards to what everyone has been talking about. Diversity, I see it as one of the tenets of entrepreneurship. And this has been mentioned in many researches. And since entrepreneurs are supposed to be individuals of risk-taking qualities, innovation, good negotiation skills, open-minded individuals, I still see problems such as glass ceiling and objectifying women. And this was mentioned by Ms. Sabrine. Women are used in marketing or ads only to get more funds. So how can we change this narrative?
Okay, Nariman, you made a very interesting point. Would you like to direct your question to a certain panelist?
Okay, I think Miss Bridget would be able to answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, thank you very much for the question. I think one of the things that we women are actually not pulling our weight in is helping other women. The values that Mariam spoke about why when you start a company, what are your values? My values are to find as many jobs and dignified work and work that will celebrate these wonderful professional women and men through gig work, through allowing them, like one of the panelists said that people call after 6 and they don't understand that women juggle 2 jobs, one of the family and one of, these are for women who are married and have kids. So what we have to do as women is celebrate other women's successes and amplify it, actually make them role models for us. And whenever there is a chance to help another woman, I think it is one of our, as Madeleine Albright said, she said there is a special place in hell for women who don't help other women, because we owe it to each other to actually lift each other up. And at the same time, knowing farewell, as Paul has said in his intervention, we see that some of the best leaders in the world are women, and especially the women who outperformed men during the COVID crisis, from Jacinda Ardern to Merkel to Christine Lagarde, to everybody who became a role model for other women because of our style of leadership. Our leadership cannot be compared to men, because it is a different style of leadership. We are leaders that deal with empathy, that lead using our emotional intelligence, that actually understand others. And this cannot be construed as a sign of weakness, because this is the way we connect to people. And we have the inclusive leadership where we create other leaders. And to answer your question, Nariman, I think one of the things that we women were failing to do is actually bond with other women to if there is a woman that's performing so well somewhere, we should all be amplifying this. And in LinkedIn, there is women leaders group that actually gets these stories of women who have reversed trends, have pioneered things that have changed humanity and helped humanity. And now with the rise of the ESG sector and a vertical in all the companies and the advent, recently I posted on LinkedIn, now there is the Chief Sustainability Officer, that is a position created within the C-suite for big companies and for multinationals to actually lead on sustainability from within and make it an inclusive part of the C-suite. So women can very easily take that job and make it what it is, an inclusive, cross-cutting, and very effective part of companies and economies that has the future of the planet as a central viewpoint in how we make money. Nobody's saying we shouldn't make money, but we make money sustainably and with an eye for not degrading the only planet we have to live on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ms. Noura, you're muted.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I'm saying if there are no other questions from the floor, I think we can conclude the session. And I would like each of the panelists in less than 1 minute to say a message to the different actors in the ecosystem about how can we further support women entrepreneurship and close the gender gap that is in the economy. In less than 1 minute, please. So I'll start by Ms. Bridget in the same order.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Very briefly, solidarity is one of the values that I think would help women and men to actually celebrate and support women's journeys into entrepreneurship that would help create more jobs for women. As we said, women investors and women employers employ 3 times as much women and invest in 3 times more women. So to regulate that parity and to that disparity that exists, and the inclusion of bright women leaders, we need to give them a fair chance by providing opportunities. And this is what we're trying to do with Gig 3, giving women the opportunity to enter back into the workforce and to be entrepreneurs by giving them the chance for flexible work and for work that can be remote and meaningful and very well paying. This is my last message. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Dr. Dina Talat.
I think educating people about this gender topic, so it starts from the very young age, and awareness. So those 2 are key for giving better environments for women and inclusion for everyone, education and awareness.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Dina. Can you tell us in less than a minute your final message?
That's my turn, right? Well, I would say we need more female investors to teach and educate the male investors about how female founders may perform as equal as the male founders. So again, women should support women, and we have the we have the responsibility to educate male investors about this gender gap and how to be fair about it. So we start by women supporting women. I'm sorry for my dog; he's barking. I don't know why.
Thank you, Rasha. And lastly, Sabrine.
Okay, I think as we always talk about what is the difference between manager and leader, I think we need here to talk about the role model of leader as a women leader. It's a role model. We have to speak about the success stories to support the successful women, either in Egypt or in Africa or worldwide. This is a support from all the women to another woman who has a success story as a role model to pursue all the people. We are able to do something and we are able to achieve something and support not only the women, but also the men as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sabrine. As a wrap up, I have taken some messages from across your interventions, and they were all very interesting. So as a wrap up, I will say the main messages. Okay, I have it here. All right. So one of the most important things that have been raised across the different interventions of the panelists is the importance of solidarity between women founders, women investors, and also the need to have more networks that bring those women together. Another important message that was raised, also the importance of having more women investors, and this is crucial, whether because they invest more in the businesses and they're more likely to put their money with women-led businesses. And also it's important to raise the awareness of male investors on the importance of having a gender lens perspective in their portfolios. Another important message that was also raised is the importance of providing or availing more educational and awareness raising opportunities for female founders, but it is not. It should also contain, or it should also be addressed to males as well, as we need to ensure that the women's rights issue or the portfolio is not only led by females. We also need another important message that was also raised is the need to highlight female leaders and portray women leadership in a different light. And we need to have more women role models who are there and people see them, learn from them, and get to also be mentored by them. So thank you very much, everyone. I hope that you found today's session enlightening in any way, and I hope that we get the opportunity to have these kind of conversation more often, and thank you very much for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Dina. Noura, thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks for moderating the session. It was very beneficial for us indeed, and we are looking to have more collaborations with you and women in such topic.
Thank you.
From you and UNESCO to have the final his final comments. I would like to send special thanks to people who didn't being able to make it today. Actually, from TIC, Dr. Rasha Tantawi, the head of entrepreneurship in TIC, Mr. Hassan Mansi from Flat 6 Labs. We have Dr. Khalid Habib as well, Professor Dr. Mohsen Shama from ISLASCA. We have Dr. Abir Shuqir from UNDP. Miss Mariam Al-Mosri from Central Bank of Egypt, and all the ministers' offices who actually helped us a lot. The Minister, Her Excellency Dr. Hala Said, and Her Excellency Dr. Rania Mashrat, who were actually got an engagement in the last minute, so they were not being able to join us. Special thanks to Ms. Fayrouz from NEMIC for all the efforts, for all the support they gave us. And actually, we were looking to have a hybrid event in NEMIC, but due to technical issues, we wouldn't be able to have it. I would like to thank all colleagues and friends actually from UNESCO, ITU, UN Women. Special thanks to Dr. Paul Hector and his team, Mr. Yasser and Mr. Omar, as well as Sama. From the ITU, I would like to thank Ms. Rhoda for her cooperation with us, and Ms. Annie. I believe that she's here and the participants. I don't know if she's still here or not. From UN Women, I would like to thank Noura and Ms. Maha Ratib and all the UN entities who helped us to make this happen today. We are very happy and glad to have this meeting with all the experienced people that we have, and their acceptance to come and join us today. I would like to have more actually collaborations with all of you, and let's check if we can have this meetings and I don't know, monthly or quarterly based. Thanks a lot, everyone. I will let the floor to dear colleague Dr. Hector from UNESCO to have the final words.
Well, good day. Thank you, everyone. I'm certain we can all agree that this has been time very well spent, and you know, I hope that as we leave, as one of the panelists said, I hope we leave with the shared sense that we're on a journey, but that we're not alone. That there are others who are facing some of these challenges. That there is unity in strength. That if we want to go fast, we can go alone. But if we really want to go far, we really need to go along together. And so I hope that this meeting will not be an end in itself, but rather it will be a sort of a springboard, a launching board from which we can now reach out to other persons who we now feel comfortable to reach out to connect with, and link our networks. And by doing that, build on that sort of sense of solidarity, that sense of a shared purpose, that sense of shared values, so we can go forward. Some of the things that I'm taking with me as, let's say, seasoning for new events, ideas to build upon. I think there's really a great importance to spread greater awareness about the concept of gender lens investing. This is something which is necessary for people working in the ecosystem, young women who are interested in getting into this area, and also I think it's also very important for young men as well to be aware of this, to understand that it's not about window dressing. Women have a lot to contribute. Women have been making a difference for a long time, and it's high time that we recognize this. I think it's also important for investors, and even I think for us as organizers of events. We've heard firsthand the challenges that women face. At UNESCO, one of the areas that we work in is the area of media. One of the things that we've developed, it's something called the gender sensitive indicators for media. And as part of this work, we have been looking at, for example, how do we make sure that there are conditions within the workplace of media professionals which allow women to rise up the ranks. We have recommendations, for example, about things like having creches, daycare facilities within media organizations. And I think, these types of ideas could perhaps be modified, adapted to the settings of incubators and accelerators. And so this could be an area that we could look at, in the future. I think, there are many agencies out there who would be interested in, at least brainstorming, working on this, and then seeing how far we can go with this. So again, all of these things these are ideas, but I think if we put our energy behind them, we can realize them. And of course, that is the sort of vision that has motivated our ITU UNESCO Regional Digital Inclusion Week for the Arab states. How can we remove the various barriers to participation? How can we make sure that the voices, all voices can be heard? How can we create that space for collaboration, bringing together people from government, civil society, private sector, individuals, etc., so that together we can do more. And I guess that's all that I have to say at this point. And I hope that, again, as I said, not only hoping, I've also talked about Girls in ICT Day. That will be another very important event that we can work towards. It's very early next year in April. So I think after the Christmas, early January, let's see how we can get together, resolve to, develop various initiatives and move forward. And of course, there are many different days throughout the year. March 8th, Women's International Day. And of course, in fact, every day in the year, we have the right to do something, because as another panelist said, women make up 50% or more of the population. So each day, it's an opportunity for us to beat our drums and raise attention to this cause. So thank you, and I leave it at that. Again, to Dr. Ada, really today could not have happened without you. I really admire you for the energy, the tenacity, the passion, that you bring, and yes, it's really so motivating to be working with you again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all, and to all the panelists and everyone.
We wouldn't do that without your support and your team support too. I remember that a couple of weeks ago, you asked me, how will you organize an event in only a couple of weeks? And I said, it's okay. If we have some support, we will do it. And actually, it was, we were working, as you know, we were working on weekends in order to make it happen. But really, without your support, your team, Mr. Rauda, I really appreciate your presence here today. All the panelists, all the moderators, all our friends and family members who supported us in order to make it happen. We have the pleasure. We are very happy to have your support. Actually, without your support, we wouldn't do anything. Thanks a lot for being here. Ms. Rauda, the floor is yours if you would like to have a final word before closing the event.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ragda. I second Paul in appreciating the efforts you did during the past week. And unfortunately, maybe I cannot provide the support for you because we were busy with lots of events during the Digital Inclusion Week, but we are so happy for having, for being invited and for having this event to be organized under the umbrella of ITU UNESCO Digital Inclusion Week. I need to appreciate that quality discussions happened during these sessions, and definitely, as Paul said, we have lots to do in terms of ensuring equality and inclusivity in all that we do. Actually, we are working in ITU as a UN specialized agency in information and communication technologies. We are committed to connecting the world. Also, we are committed to providing the support in terms of the advocacies to government for policies formulations, especially in digital transformation and other endeavor in order to cope with to be prepared and to cope with the challenges of the digital world. We are working on digital inclusion as maybe digital inclusion and everything on digital. It's all about people, how to really make these people involved in the services we provided in terms of connectivity and access, in terms of platforms, in terms of policies that enabling everything to make them fully benefit from the digital world. Where the target group we are serving, actually we are focusing in our program in ITU on digital inclusion are the women and girls, as Paul mentioned. The girls in ICT, it's becoming a global movement in which we are celebrating this issue all the year, and we are inviting all stakeholders to really take actions to shed light. As we heard during the session, there are lots of challenges, not regionally but globally also, and we need to contribute and to make women more empowered in the digital world. Also, we are working on child online protection to make sure that the children are equipped and empowered in the online. Also, we are working on the underserved communities. We are trying to support even the youth, and we are initiated the Generation Connect initiative in which we are trying to work on 3 pillars to get the young people more involved in that and engaged in the ITU, empower, engage, and participate. So I'm inviting all to follow our programs on www.itu.int, and I would like even to thank Paul and to really highlight this kind of collaboration between the UN agencies and other stakeholders. This Digital Inclusion Week, we hope that we can build upon the success of this week and to have more concrete actions to do in the coming years. I thank you very much, and thank you, Ragda, for your effort. Thank you. Over.
All right.
Thanks for all of the people who came today. Special thanks to our friends from the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. Actually, we have someone, Mr. Muhammad Adawi. He is the officer of National Affairs and the Ministry, and he helped us a lot to reach Her Excellency Dr. Hala Said, but actually she couldn't make it the last time. Thanks for our friends from the Ministry of International Cooperation as well. Thanks for all the attendees, for people who are joining us from Facebook Live, or through the Zoom meeting. Thanks for being here. We are looking for more collaborations with both UNESCO and ITU, not only as events. We would like to have more business together. So we'll have another meeting actually coming on in the coming time, I believe after the Christmas. Yes, thanks a lot for being here today. Thanks for all the support. It was a lovely meeting. Thanks for all the success that we had achieved together in this meeting. Have a nice day, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.